Hi everyone, and in this video, we're going to talk about the process of job analysis. But before we do that, we're going to introduce you to what job analysis is, as well as how is this different from job design. So organizations are made up of a number of people completing tasks, and that group of tasks is called a job. Now, job analysis and job design essentially go hand in hand, and a job analysis examines how each job should be performed to determine the skills, the duties, and the knowledge that's required for that particular job. Okay. Now, job design specifies the task and skills needed to meet the goals of the organization's mission and vision. But at the top level, we have to first just analyze, what we have to do for the job. So first, we want to define the objectives of that particular job. So if I'm a software company, right? So the objectives of a software company is to provide a service for a number of organizations around the world. So in order to provide those services, you need to fill a gap for a number of organizations around the world. So the objectives is to say, okay, the organization has a number of repetitive tasks that they do day in and day out, okay? Normally, they have a large number of people performing those repetitive tasks. And because those tasks, are intensive, they have high turnover rates, right? So the objective of this software company is to essentially automate these repetitive tasks, okay? So once we have identified that objective, we want to prepare a job analysis where we can say, okay, we need a number of programmers, a number of developers that can brainstorm to, one, identify a potential solution to fill this need, and two, we need developers to actually program that potential solution, right? So once we have prepared that job analysis for those individuals that we're looking for, then we're actually going to what we refer to as perform that job analysis. So we're actually going to put that idea to paper. We're actually going to get feedback from individuals within the industry to make adjustments to that particular job analysis. And then from that feedback, then we'll actually create that job description. So we're going to create a job description that will actually outline all the bullets of all the tasks that individual or individuals or teams will perform. Right now we're going to outline all the activities that those individuals, teams, or groups are going to perform. But then, in order to get to the preferred individuals to interview, then we're also going to have prerequisites. Now, in a job description, you're going to have prerequisites of a 4-year college degree. You're sometimes going to have a certain number of years of experience in that particular industry. And then that's going to also lead you into the more specific things that individual is going to be expected to do and to perform. And then once you lay that out, then you're actually going to do what we refer to as controlled job descriptions. We're actually going to, once we begin to get candidates for that particular role, then we're going to monitor and control those particular job descriptions and specifications. Now it's also important to note that as we begin to hire individuals within that role, we're going to see if there's any kind of changes or adjustments that need to be made for those job descriptions and specifications based on what actually happens and the growth of the organization. So for example, if I'm a multinational organization, because my project teams will be communicating in English, for example, in Spanish, for example, I may have a job specification that developer may need to be multilingual, right? So with monitoring and controlling, as the company grows, as we continue to hire individuals for this role, those job descriptions and specifications may change as we progress within the organization and as we grow as the organization. So next, we're going to also talk about job enlargement and job enrichment, and when we talk about job design, job design is a plan on how we need to complete the tasks that are needed within the organization, right? Now, sometimes those tasks are not the most exciting tasks. So now we need to empower and influence individuals to perform those tasks, all right? So going back to our previous example where, we have this role that has a lot of repetitive tasks, we somehow need to be innovative to keep up the morale within our workforce and our organization. Now, there are some approaches such as horizontal loading. So horizontal loading is where we're going to add more tasks to the job, but they're not better tasks to the job. In my opinion, whenever we do horizontal loading, you sometimes will add wasteful activities, right? And what I mean by wasteful activities is if a particular activity does not provide value to the client, if it does not provide value to the organization, it's wasteful and it needs to be eliminated. Okay. Now I do call out horizontal loading because these are some of the tasks these are some of the approaches that some organizations do. And if you do see things where you're adding more tasks but without value, you need to kind of explain what is going on and look to eliminate those activities because they are not value added. Okay. Now, you can do this in a different way where what we refer to as job enlargement. So you are adding additional tasks to a role, but they are indeed adding value to the client. They're adding value to the organization. So you are increasing the tasks, you are increasing the duties of the individual. You're increasing the tasks and the duties of the team, right? So you're adding value, right? You are increasing activities, but you're adding value. But again, going back to a previous week, if you explain the why and how it's going to benefit the organization, how it's going to benefit the client, then you're going to get buy-in from your workforce. Okay. Now that's one approach to effectively implement horizontal loading. Okay. On the flip side, we also have what we refer to as vertical loading. Now with vertical loading, that is where we're going to add additional tasks psychologically, right? Where you can actually empower employees, and then that's going to lead to additional career growth, right? You're adding additional opportunities for training. You're adding additional opportunities for education, right? And then that's referred to as vertical loading. Now going on to job enrichment. So With job enrichment, you are also going is somewhat similar to this vertical loading, where you're adding more psychological growth, you're adding more education, you're adding more knowledge to that individual so that he or she can better perform their job. Okay. Now, when we're talking about job enrichment, there are 5 elements to job enrichment where you can add different varieties to a particular job. And one is task variety. So you add different tasks to get done on a job. So essentially an individual could do different things to get the same outcome, right? So in software development, you could perform a certain task to get to the same result, right? So what I mean by that is that in some environments, you have a waterfall approach, you have an agile approach, right? Now, I've seen this done. This is not normal, but just for the task variety, I'm going to outline this, where you can have some teams that are using the waterfall approach, you have some teams that are doing the agile approach, but essentially they're rolling out product, right? So that would be one example of task variety. And then you also have a different example for task significance. So how important that particular job is. So going back to this agile approach in software development, in agile, in some cases you would actually tackle the most complex tasks first, right? You would tackle the higher priority tasks first, right? Although they may not be in a sequential order, if you would be able to address that complex task, you could address that first. And then that is essentially where I would skip the monotonous tasks. But if I could address that complex task, then I could move that one up in the priority list, and I could look at that one first. So that is, how you could do task significance, so you can enrich that job and you can have people more engaged. Okay. Task identity is another area where you have an individual that will take on the entire project, as opposed to chipping away at different individual tasks, right? So for example, in an assembly line, in an automotive assembly line, one person is putting on the doors on the assembly line. That's all they do every day, all day. Okay. Whereas, you're breaking up that in little small bite-sized pieces, right? Whereas in another environment, you have teams that are working together to build the entire car, right? So you have task identity, where you have some environments that are doing one piece at a time, those repetitive tasks, and then you have other teams that are working together to build the whole entire car at one time. So going back to our software development aspect, you might have one person doing unit tests, and all that person does is unit tests. Whereas you could have a team that's working together, where one programmer does the coding, and then they work together as a team to say, once that one programmer does a piece of coding, then that other person does the unit testing, and then they can collaborate and go back and forth and make adjustments as needed, as opposed to waiting toward the very end for the individual unit test. It has to go all the way back to the beginning, so those are different approaches that you could do for job enrichment. Next, we have autonomy, where the authority can make decisions on how to best complete the work. So this is our traditional business, where you would have a project manager, you would have a director that would essentially let the employees know, what tasks to do in what step, right? Now, I'm not a fan of that, but there are some environments that are still using that approach. But then, in terms of job enrichment, you have the last one in terms of feedback, where this is one that I am very familiar with. The feedback is one that I like, in that whenever I say feedback, we're getting what we refer to as continuous feedback loops. Okay, so the employees will perform a tasks, and then they'll provide feedback into how to improve on that task, right? So every time there is an improvement, a continuous improvement opportunity, the employees will share that knowledge, right? Share their opinions. We make adjustments, and the next time we go through that process, it's improved upon. It's more efficient. We are doing it quicker with less defects and errors. So those are some of the approaches we can do for job enrichment. Now, there is no one size fits all approach to job enrichment. It depends on the organization's culture. It depends on the industry. It also depends on the people. I hope that was helpful. I hope the examples were helpful. I tried my best, and I'll see you on the next video.